the smell of grass and leather. There were days when we'd play too. We'd cross the lines when the sun would shine and make our dreams come true. I had a glove on my hand and a girl in the stands. She stole my heart like a hit and run. It seems the world was so much simpler back then. We was just out there for fun. I pray for someone to hold your hand, and baseball in the summer. Someone to walk with you when this world grows cold. Baseball in the summer. Baseball in the summer.
Welcome to the BrockvMac Legendary Rivals podcast, and we are here today with, I think, probably a person who played more BrockvMac games than just about anybody other than those McMaster crazies who, had 10-year SEBA and university eligibility. But, super happy to have Brock Hall of Fame center fielder Rick Bottomley, a.k.a. one of the nicest people you'll ever meet. Rick, how are you?
Great. Thanks for that introduction. Great introduction. Appreciate it. I know things are going good. Can't complain.
Yeah, that's, there'd be a few people, you do a pretty good job of staying in touch with some of your old teammates, but you'd have a few that would be eager to know what you're up to these days and, how you're feeling having survived lifting of furniture and all these kinds of wonderful things that are occurring in your life. So I give everyone a quick update on what you're up to.
Yeah, so I just finished a move on Saturday. We decided, a little later on before the beginning of this year, maybe it's time for a change. So we were in a semi-detached house, and we moved to a single detached house, which is nice. With more room. Obviously, that means more things to do, more things to touch up. But so the muscles, a lot of Advil and 8535 that's been used in the last week and a bit there. But that's behind us now. Now it's just finishings and all that fun stuff that comes along with it. But so as far as that, just finished that. I presently work as an inspection specialist with Metrolinx, or more people will know as Go Transit. I've been there for 7 years. We do regulatory inspections as far as wherever Go Transit runs or Metrolinx owns. So between Barrie, Oakville, Kitchener, Oshawa. So I've got a pretty big territory to cover. There's only 3 of us, but I'm tasked with regulatory inspections, like I said, for culverts, retaining walls, noise barriers, and pedestrian underpasses. So keeps me busy. Like I said, a lot of driving, a lot of back and forth. I dislike that Toronto traffic, but unfortunately, it's just part of the business. But 2 girls, 19 and 17. I'm proud to say that my eldest, Maddie, is at Brock doing sociology. So I'm happy to see that she's gone to the alma mater there. So I'm impressed that she reached out and wanted to do that. And the youngest is 17. Last year high school, coming up next year, and then hopefully college or university for her. She's not too sure yet, but she's got time to figure it out. So.
Well, having had 2 girls of my own that are 20 and 19, both of them in university, I know why you have no hair at a certain point. It's amazing. Girls are amazing, and I joke about it frequently. But it is a bit of an adjustment at a certain point where it's just like they're so, please mom, please dad, how can I help, up until about 12, and then it starts to get a little more.
Yep, we know everything, and we don't need you anymore.
It's amazing.
Other than being the bank.
Yeah, well, bank, ATM, the empowerment of the social life, all those kinds of things. Right. But I think it's super cool that your daughter's going to Brock. And Rick, whereabouts are you living?
So when I finished Brock, I met my president, well, my wife. She was from Niagara Falls, so I ended up just staying here, and I've been since I've done school. I've been in the Falls ever since. So
So
that's
this
1998,
this explains
99.
why. Yeah, it explains why Coach Kemp saw you at a tournament and tried to recruit you to kind of
Yes,
help with his
yes,
players.
yeah. And I also saw him quite a bit because the girls were heavily into soccer. So I definitely saw him. We have an indoor facility in the Falls here, and I definitely saw him because he would either be after or before the girls' soccer practice with the baseball team on the other side. So I had a good chance to touch base with him a couple times, but never really had the time or unfortunately to help out. But I did start helping out a gentleman that he was helping coach with, Mike Tiso, and I did do 1 year of coaching U8, so travel. So that was fun and interesting, to say the least. But it's a little different when you're trying to mold young minds and trying to show them the things that you know about the game to help them out. But it was fun. It was fun.
Well, I'm sure Coach Kemp will be thrilled to hear that you gave it a stab, and it's hard because like your girls like mine are into sports that are very heavy. Like
That's
I
right.
had two in rep hockey on different teams, so 6 to 7 nights a week you're in an arena, and
Yeah.
different things that they're into, and your primary job as a parent is to be supportive of what your kids want to do.
That's
So
right.
it always doesn't necessarily mean baseball.
That's right. Yeah. So many nights of okay, I'll take her to practice. You go watch the game, vice versa. And you obviously try to get to their games when you can. And it was basketball, so it was busy. It was busy. So it was tough. It was tough to give that time. So it basically happened once the girls were pretty well done the competitive side of the sports, that I was able to give some of that time. And again, I'd like to do it more, but it's work has gotten busier this last couple of years. So, but when it slows down, I'll definitely put my hat back in to give somebody a hand.
Yeah, of course, and I think it's great, and I've readily admitted that not everyone's got the personality to be an effective coach or mentor to others. Like you definitely do. You're always a thoughtful and friendly type of, I mean, vicious competitor, but very similar to Doug Lunny in that regard. In that Doug's a great coach, and that people love playing for him because he's just got a friendly, approachable demeanor. And I think in today's mentality of the athlete, it's a little bit different than when we were playing.
Right.
Like
Right.
there, it was a lot more hardcore, and there was kind of a one size fits all type of
Yeah.
approach. And now it's evolved a little bit where it's more individualized coaching plans, kind of like the individualized teaching plans that they use in school. So
Yeah, and you've got to know the individuals you're coaching too. That's the thing too. Can they take a little bit of adversity or a little bit of the coach coming down on them harder? Is it something you need to step back and say, maybe just suggest? Yeah, so that's the difficult part of it, right? Is if you've got depending where you are, 16 young minds to try to this works best for them, this works best for him, or whatever. So it is a bit difficult there.
well, Rick, let's hop back a bit, and we heard on Jess Dixon's podcast that you guys pretty much grew up together, but
We did.
why don't we start with what your life was like before Brock, and growing up and discovering sports and those kinds of things. Who were big
Yeah.
influences?
So grew up in Stoney Creek. That's where I've been ever since. Sorry, before I came to the Falls, but yeah, I just have to say my father. So my father got me into the sports at a young age. I can remember skating young. I can remember obviously playing baseball young. You just do anything with me. You know what I mean? Just kicking the ball around, passing the ball around, and I can't say enough of the sacrifices that he's made and my parents have made. I just constantly, let's go outside, let's go outside, let's go outside, let's roll the ball around. And it takes a lot for basically every day for me to say that and them to come out. But yeah, so I started heavy influence with t-ball. I was really, I guess I was half decent at a young age. I was playing with the 6-year-old. I was 3. I was playing with the 6-year-old, so I guess I was okay. But yeah, so that's where the passion started. And I just loved playing it. Obviously, when I could play travel, once we got to Titan Little League, Little League was huge. We had a few good teams for the league. We should have gone farther than we did. Um, we definitely should have made it to the Canadians a couple times that we were there. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. But yeah, so the passion started very, very young. Um, yeah, and then come growing up, I did everything: tennis, basketball, a little bit of curling. I mean, if I could do it, I did it. So like I said, my summers and winters were very, very packed full of sports, and that's basically all that was important at the time. Was okay. I got to go to this sport, do that sport. But yeah,
Here's a good question, because we've had, Coach McRae talked about it. Several people have talked about that they played multiple sports. You think it made you a better baseball player to play different sports to get different perspectives and movements into the mix?
that's a tough one. It definitely makes you a better athlete. You know what I mean? You're not using we'll say the same muscles and the form in each sport. So you'll gain muscle in playing other things that might help you out in another sport. You know what I mean? So that way. But I'm not. Now when we see it's more of a sport-based system where you're in one sport and that's it. You're doing that summer, winter. For me personally, I don't think I would have enjoyed that. Just because I love playing pretty well anything, right? Um, do I think like I said, it's a toss-up, right? Like I said, it gives you the ability to, I guess, each sport is different, so it helps your mind a little more with different things. If it's a fast sports place like hockey, then it helps your mind quickly to you've got to be really instant with your decisions, things like that. Baseball, it's a little more laid back until something happens, right? But yeah, I would say it's yes and no, but yeah, it's kind of a complex one there.
Okay, sorry about.
Yeah, no, that's okay.
Yeah. So Rick, you're in Stoney Creek, and I assume that your parents are a big influence. They're helping enable you to just go out and try as many things as possible. Whereabouts, in the mix does Jesse Dixon enter your life? And
Yeah,
there's been several people who've mentioned playing with you in places like Glanbrook and these kinds of things. So I assume it's kind of all the Hamilton area, and you
right,
start getting into organized sports.
right. Yeah, so I met Jess when I was 8. We were put together on the same house league hockey team called Studio 99 was our sponsor, a little haircut place in Stoney Creek there.
That just sounds like a nightclub, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so Studio 99. So yeah, so we played together there, and then yeah, went to school together. In elementary school, I was at collegiate. Then once I changed schools in grade 4, and that's where we really got closer, because he was at the same school at that time for elementary. So, and then all the way up, we just did pretty well everything together. Now, Jess played basically, we'll say from Pee Wee to midget. He played a lot of with Mahoney. So Mahoney was a different type of baseball group than what Stoney Creek was. So Stoney Creek, I played with the teams with Pateki, Steve Maga, for instance, those guys. But Jess was off with Mahoney. Now we got to school, and a couple other friends from high school were playing with this Glanbrook team. So this would be our first year junior. Stoney Creek was okay, but I had really good friendships with these guys from high school. So we ended up going to play for Glanbrook. Not a metropolis by any means. It was a small. It's bigger now because there's more houses there now, but just a small little place. Guys, just were there to have fun. We were competitive, but I really enjoyed that part of it where it wasn't really competitive because I know I'd be competitive myself, as a place where I can enjoy playing the game every day. So, like I said, myself and Jess had that all the way up, going through Glanbrook. But so that was it for me and Jess so far as that goes for playing together. And then yeah, but yeah, so Jess has been in my life for quite a bit of time there, and we've obviously we have a great friendship, and we see each other quite a bit. So it's it's nice to have friendships like that, starting from a young age.
So here's a good theory, right? Jess looks the same now as he did when he was playing. He doesn't age.
No, right. You're right. Yeah.
But did he come out of the womb looking like that? This is the question. And has he looked the same since he was like 12?
No, he hasn't changed. It's got a little more like what we all do, a little more gray. But he looks pretty well exactly like he did when he was younger. We've all probably put a few pounds on, obviously, but he looks exactly how he looked when he was younger.
It's ridiculous in some people's case, right? You see this at the odd time with a Hollywood person, like I think John Ratzenberger, who played Cliff Clavin on Cheers, probably has looked the same age his entire life. He looked old when he was young. At middle-aged, he looked the same as he did when he was young. And when he's old, he's going to look the same as when he's always that same person, right? Jess is kind of that.
Jess is the same.
For us. Did you play high school baseball? Was that one of the things that was going on?
Yeah. So we so our head coach, Don Walker, when we were at Glenbrook, he decided to come over, and we kind of got to the baseball, like the high school baseball thing late. So it was my last year, or myself and Dixon's last year. Again, we had a really good team. We went to, I believe it was the Ontario Cup back then, if I'm not.
Probably the Prentice Cup playdowns.
Thank you. Yes, the Prentice Cup. Thank you very much. Yes. So that was good. So we only had the one year of high school ball, but we had so many good players. We were such a good team, and we won obviously our area. That's why we went to the Prentice Cup. But so it's unfortunate because what's his I'm trying to remember his name. We had good players like Vakar. I can't remember Vakar's first name, but he was drafted Major League as a pitcher. And we just had so many good players that played with Stoney Creek, Glenbrook, that area. That team, it would have been nice to see a couple more years with that group, but unfortunately, it was only the one.
Yeah. So, Rick, what did you have? Were you always an outfielder? Were you always playing in the outfield, or did you play different positions when you were younger?
No. So when I was starting all the way up. I played shortstop. So shortstop was it for me. I played shortstop until we could pitch. So I guess that would have been tight. So shortstop and pitch until I got to midget. Then I went to midget. That's 15, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Let's try the center field thing. And I'm like, geez, this is fantastic. I love it out here. So so I didn't start playing the field until I was 15. And other than that, it was I pitched and played shortstop. So
my goodness, you're a very slick and very smooth center fielder for a guy that picked it up so late. It's
appreciate that. Yes.
That's really interesting. Did you ever? What caused you to? Did you stop pitching when you got to Brock, or was it something that?
For midget there, I did a little bit of pitching, but I just was. I don't say I fell out of love with it, but I mean, I was happier to play the field. Like if you wanted me to come in and throw a couple, okay, I'll throw a couple innings for you, right? But I was just loved it out there. I loved the fact that I could chase down balls. I could, make big throws. I loved it. I absolutely loved it out there. So that's where the pitching just tailed off for me. I didn't really, have a really passion for it, but like once I got to the center field, I'm like, okay, this is the position for me. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, it's home, and it's funny how center fielders more than any other outfielder they like taking ownership of the position. It's their it's their domain or their property out there. So very similar to what Craig Cooper had to say about his position with McMaster. Rick, do you remember what led you to how did you end up at Brock University? And I'm sure that you were likely entertaining some offers to maybe go stateside, like most of the kids
right.
of your ability would. How did you end up at Brock?
Yeah, so we had it's again, playing multiple sports like I did, especially in high school as well. Had the offers to go to a couple junior colleges and some lesser known universities down there. But I really love football as well. So I played running back, obviously in junior, senior. I played receiver. Obviously, I said obviously, but I did really well. I turned some heads at some scouting. I played in the Steel City Bowl, was the Hamilton area big, like we'll say all-star game. So I was in that, and I got recruited to go play football at St. FX. So I thought, this is fantastic. This is the best. So had everything worked out, courses picked, got to, it was probably mid-August, and I'm having a great year of baseball. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know if I want to go play football. So fortunately, I called the St. FX coach, say, hey, listen, I've got a little dilemma here. I'm not sure what I want to do here. Now, not knowing where I would have gone for baseball, no clue. So what had been happening, so I just, I talked to the coach, and, we got some good contact there. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to come. Fortunately, I'm not going to come to St. FX. A little bit of disappointing, but obviously looking back on it, I'm very happy with the decision. So I went back to high school for the grade 14 there for a bit there. I know Jess maybe has mentioned that to you as well. We were cohorts there, gone back for another year of high school. And at the time, I already had played for Coach McRae for some playdowns. So myself and Paul Matecki, who always played at Stoney Creek, we were asked to play with his Niagara Falls team. So I've known him from then. And then talking with Jess, hey, I heard McRae is going to be coaching at Brock. So we're like, oh, okay, let's put two and two together here. So that's how I ended up at Brock. Yeah, it's a surreal thing. It was just it just worked out, and like I said, I know Coach McRae. I know I coaches, obviously Coach Lansbury too, but I mean, I know the coach. He would love to have me here, so I'm like, oh, I guess I'll go to. It's not too far from Stoney Creek. Not that would have mattered anyways, but yeah. So that's how I ended up at Brock.
Wow, I did. Think of an alternate universe where you're playing wide receiver for St. FX, and probably at that time, if that coach would have been up to speed on it, St. FX also had a baseball team, and really interesting. And I'm glad. Obviously, we're thrilled that you came to Brock. But you had some exposure to Coach McRae then prior to Brock. What was that like? So tell me about meeting Coach McRae for the first time I guess it would have been a Niagara District team.
Yeah, so actually before that, there's a story before that. So I signed up in Little League. I signed up for, we've got summer camps. The Hamilton Redbirds were putting on a summer camp. And I didn't know at the time, but Coach McRae was a pitcher for the Redbirds at the time. So he was one of the people that came to this camp and for a week, he was great, had some fun with them. I remember, everybody put the gear on and he's throwing balls at us for catchers in the ground, in the dirt, we're supposed to block. So that was, definitely remember that. That was fun. So just actually known him for a while. And then it comes full circle when I started playing with the Niagara District team there. They had a really good team. We had some fun. Myself and Paul had some fun. And so it was just surreal, like to know him since I was 12, come back, circle the Niagara District team, and then now at Brock. So it's I guess it's meant to be, I guess.
Yeah, so it would have been less of a culture shock than it was for some of the other players who probably had, parent coaches or whatever, right? So, no, that's great. Do you remember what you decided to take at Brock? What were you going to take in terms of your courses and stuff? Yeah, so
when I first came to Brock, I was with because I love phys ed, but it was movement education at Brock. So at that time, as you know, there was no kinesiology, there's no sports management, right? So I'm thinking, okay, so I got into the movement education, and the other courses, like, you have to have your psych course, you got to have your sociology, your electives, all that stuff. But I just found the movement education not where I wanted to be. So there goes a year. Year, I'm like, okay, recreation and leisure. I'll try that. That's, I can, become a manager. There's many things you could do with that, manager of a Y or whatever, right? And then, of course, now sports management, kinesiology, that comes out. So I'm like, oh, what do I do now?
So, Rick, you're in the infamous movement class that, a fair number of our athletes transitioned out of into other pursuits. And just to set the table before we get into training camp and the team and that kind of stuff, were you commuting in from Stoney Creek to Brock, or were you living off campus?
So myself and Jess were commuting in together from Stoney Creek, so that made it nice. I had someone to come down with it and back and forth, so that was fantastic. Now it made for the long days in the fall, obviously, because we had practices at 4, so class started at 8. So we're there, and so that fall was tough. So people thought I probably lived in residence. The amount of time I was there at residences, so they probably thought I was I wasn't actually in residence, but never was for the first year. And then that's when I said, for sure, second year, I definitely had to do just too much, right? Too much going back and forth. So, but
there was no playbook in first year to explain to us how heavy this was going to be. Right. The idea of dropping one course, down to 4 credits during the fall would have made a ton of sense if someone would have told us to do that. It's a big time commitment. I don't think people understand that we're basically on the field 7 days a week. And so that brings us to the infamous training camp. And, tell me what it was like rolling up and seeing, it was, I think, about 50, 55 players at the first training camp in Thorold.
Yeah. So, you roll up together. And we're like, oh my, you're not expecting that many kids. But you kind of look around and, you just instill in confidence in yourself. Like for myself, I'm like, okay, I know I'm a good player. I know what I can do. Just go out there, do what I can do, show them what I can show, and where the chips fall, they fall. Now, again, I've had a good rapport with Mike, and I knew he wanted me to come. So, you kind of have that confidence in there that, why would he ask me to come to this program if he doesn't think I should be with the program, right? But you get in there, outfielders, like 20 outfielders for the outfielders drills, and you're like, oh my God, there's so many people, and you're just trying to be one of the, you would think that, they might carry 4 or 5, right? So hopefully you can be one of the 5. And to this day, I just remember Nish coming up, taking his first right field at the third throw. And you just, everybody's watching everybody, and you see him, and everybody just looks at each other going, what just happened? Like this guy just threw a 100 mile an hour seed right to the third baseman's glove on the bag. Like, what just happened? And you're like, okay, this guy's making the team. But especially with the day he had, right? So he slept in his car that night to make sure he was there for the tryout. And you're like, this guy was awesome. But it's a little surreal there. I mean, like with that many people, like normally, growing up in where I played most teams, okay, I'm pretty well a shoe in to play, but you get a big organization like this, you don't, like, I don't know how many people are at Brock. I don't know how many people play baseball at Brock, and you show up and there's that many kids. You're like, okay, this is, we got to really put an effort in here to make a good impression. Right. So.
Yeah. And there, the outfield was very deep on the top end. So, you've got yourself and you've got Andrew, who shows up and no one knows is coming, but there's also the American import, Scott Jusiak, who had played for Coach McRae at Erie. And you have Daryl Houston, who, is a player that most people would have been familiar with. So again, very, very talented. But the early days of camp are defined by, we had 2-a-days and there was a ton of hard work. Yeah, I don't know how tired you were at the end of that training camp, but I was freaking exhausted.
Yeah, well, again, like I said, for us, for myself and Dixon, like we're driving back and forth, right? So we've got class starting at 8, so we're out of Stoney Creek by 7, I guess, to get to school, and then by the time practice done, it's like 6:37. Well, at that time, I guess it's fall, so maybe 6:30, and then now you got to get home, then you got to do work. So it was a taxing year. Again, not knowing what to expect and then getting into it, especially the practices. You're like, wow, this is okay. This is like, I'm sure okay, I want to do this, so I gotta pull up the socks and get into it. But I mean, yeah, it was trying, but it definitely worth the effort. That's for sure.
Yeah, so tell me your first impressions of, you get to meet Daryl Kemp for the first time, and Coach Kemp's a classic when it comes to the way that he deals with people. So tell me a little bit about your interactions with Daryl Kemp.
Yeah, he just has that rise, the just off the cuff jokes, but he's not laughing, right? He just says it, right? And you're like, what did he just say? You know what I mean? You're like, and then you think about it, you're like, that was fantastic. Like, that's a great one-liner, right? Stuff like that. And you're just like, oh, okay. He's got that dry Chris. And you're like, okay, I like this guy. This guy's a gamer. I love, especially knowing his background, right? From baseball, you're like, okay, I need to keep my ear to this guy because he knows a lot about the game. I'm not there, so any little tidbit I could take. I was hitting off the tee, taking little tidbits from him, taking up. I was so happy just to have some person like that there that knew the game like he did, and I could take a little piece from every time. Ask him a question. Hey, what about this? What about this? Don't worry about it. No, you should try this. So that was really nice. Mr. Kemp was fantastic.
Yeah, and so obviously there's, I don't think you probably had any trepidation about making the team in training camp, but you would have seen people like Jeff Hoover and the Houston brothers, and some pretty high profile folks walking around those baseball fields. Do you remember the day you made the team, and were you excited, or was it just time to get down to work? Because we were right into the season right away.
We I think, what did we play, like 35 games that year, something like that, or it was so we were right in it, right? It's obviously a relief, but then it's okay. You put the effort in, you deserve that spot, and now, like I said, now it's time to get. Once we knew that, okay, well, this is what's coming. Like, we got 2 games here that come. Like, so you're like, okay, we got to get into it, right? You're trying to introduce yourself to everybody, get to know everybody. You know what I mean? So that was probably the toughest thing at the beginning. Yes, because there's how many we carry plus a JV squad. So how many do we have? I can't remember.
I think we were 20, 24, 25.
So there's a lot of people to meet and minds to get around there, right? Like, okay, how does this guy like this? So it was a big ask, but we got through it. We worked.
Yeah, and did you would have had some interaction also with Coach Briggs Jude, who worked with the outfielders, and Wayne's a classic. Wayne
was great. Again, a fantastic guy. Still see him, which is nice. Still see him usually once or twice a year if I can. And we also had, actually, Coach LePage was helping out as well. He was helping us doing those outfielders drills as well. And, not knowing that, again, another person I still keep in contact with as well. Those early years with, but I mean, it was just all the coaching staff as well, right? But Briggs Jude was great. Little techniques and things that, again, you know the position well, but there's things you take away from, like you said, from Daryl, from Briggs Jude, that you're just, okay, this is going to make me a better player, so let's do it. But I do have a fantastic story about Briggs. A couple other players I'll know about too. So we went to Montreal the first year for nationals. So we were going to the Big O, and I can't remember why we're going to the Big O for something. So we had the 15-seater van, but it wasn't full. There was only maybe 6 or 8 of us. And I can't remember, again, I can't remember what I had for breakfast this morning, but Um, I know Nish was fighting with something, and I'm sitting, just looking ahead. I'm, checking out Montreal, blah blah blah. And I just remember Briggs Jude. He's driving, and he has got his eyes in the rearview mirror for like 10 seconds. And I'm just watching the road ahead, and he's just like this. And I'm like, we're going to die today. And no, it was anyways, I just remember that story. They were fighting in the back, and he's just driving his eyes in the rearview mirror, just driving. I'm like, is he going to look at the road? I'm like, oh, but yeah, just fun times like that. But,
angry parent stares, what that is, right?
Don't make me stop this van.
Well, it's I always find that Wayne reminds me of your like favorite uncle, or he's got some elements of everyone's dad in there, and plus he rocks the world's greatest mustache. So I think from that perspective,
still has it fantastic.
I know still it is. It's he should teach a course on how to grow one. Do you have any memories of the season, Rick? I mean, obviously there's some interesting things that people have relayed, right? I think your very first at bat for the team, you hit a double. You put her in the gap.
I remember that against Canisius. Yeah, their night game there against Canisius. I remember that, and very humble and very happy to have the first, I guess, official hit for Brock. So that was good, and I remember trying a million bats. Like I just couldn't find a bat that I was comfortable with, and I ended up using. I remember Chris Peters had that white Louisville. It was like a 32-inch, like not even 33, 34, like a 32-inch, and I'm like, man, this feels pretty comfortable. So, that's what I stuck with for most of the year. Just playing the wiffle ball at Nationals, playing the wiffle ball at the motel there, the double deck with it. I just remember things like that. Nish dropping Juziak's glove and hat in the mud. One of those night games at Nationals there, and Juice is just looking at him like, really, dude, like really, like. Juice, there was his hat's all muddy, his gloves all full of mud. It's like 30 below. Oh my god! But I mean, just coming together as a team, right? We had such a really amazing ball players on that team, and for the most part, everybody interacted, right? We got along for the most part, which is it's not say highly unusual, but it's not easy to do with a group like that.
No, especially one that hasn't been playing together.
That's right.
At all prior to that, and
for sure.
And typically, I've said that where teams come undone is typically on a pitching staff where you have these high maintenance personalities. That tend to be very competitive for mound time and that kind of stuff. But we didn't really have any of that stuff. It was the team gelled very quickly, and everyone was happy to be in their role and performing, and everyone had a really good year. It was really a great year, and I don't think that team is defined by losing one game to Laval at the end of it. That doesn't really add up the sum total of it. It really is about laying a foundation that allows for a 30-year program and one that wins the Nationals within a few years of that.
Yeah.
Do you have any recollection of, I've said that one of the things I think that's really interesting is people underestimated the quality of the Canadian teams. It was one thing to take a look at a George Brown or a Guelph at that time.
Correct.
And those games were not competitive, let's just put it that way. But when the best came out of the garage for U of T or McMaster, those were some hellacious games, and we weren't blowing those teams out, and they weren't blowing us out. And I think they expected to roll over a new program. That's the early start of the BrockvMac rivalry, as we knocked McMaster out of going to the national championships. Tell me a little bit about what you thought of the talent in Canada, because we've talked a lot about the U.S. and some of those experiences, and we'll get to one in a bit. But a little bit about your recollections of the Canadian teams more than
like I said, except for your George Browns there and teams like that, but everybody else were very competitive, right? Everybody had to pick from a lot of good players, a lot of good talent from their schools. We'll just take, for instance, maybe not the first, but, we go over and play Malloy, or we go over and play Canisius, or we go over and play, who's the team? Macomb. Ernie Witz, the coach, we beat them a doubleheader. They were a really good team, and we kind of blew them out those 2 games, right? So uh, I don't. Maybe it's just that we didn't know. Like a lot of kids didn't know the availability was there to play Canadian baseball. Maybe because it was in its early stages, right? For most, not for all teams, but obviously for ours, it was the first year. So maybe that was the case. Obviously, you knew you could go to the States. You knew you had every opportunity to play JUCO, Division 2, 1, whatever you wanted over there, but not so much in Canada, right? So I maybe think that was it, but I don't think the talent, there was much difference in the talent, right? Obviously, your top teams in the States, yes, but I mean, as far as you put our best game or our best team against any team, I think we come out pretty good for the most part.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I noticed, and I played in the U.S. against a lot of the summer kids that were scholarship kids from Buffalo, so they were all over in the southern U.S. and at Niagara and Canisius in particular, but some ex-pros thrown in with that. Is I think the only thing that you could say heads or tails was there was a depth of pitching difference.
That's probably the biggest one, yeah.
Yeah, if we would go 4 to 5 guys deep, typically, that could probably pitch at that level. And then it was, the other guys had to really be on to be able to do it. And their teams are typically 8, 9 deep. And
pitcher after pitcher after pitcher.
It makes a big difference, right? If your starter's having a bad day and then you go to the next guy up has the exact same good stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas, I think, I'm not being pretentious, I'm just being self-aware. That was an area that we needed more rubber on the road for the guys that were learning to pitch at that level. We had, we had some experience at the top end of the rotation and some ability, but
you had to bring your best stuff, but you also had to hit your spots, because anybody at that level can hit that 90-mile-an-hour fastball, right? Like anybody's hitting that. So you had to
put an aluminum bat in their hands, and that that makes that, it doesn't matter how hard you throw, that's going to be a real problem. So Rick, let's touch a little bit about the ridiculousness because it's better to hear it at a first person. I think we should talk a little bit about Cooperstown, and everyone likes to talk about that, but let's set the stage first. I mean, had you been to Cooperstown before?
I had not.
Okay. So for those people who've never been to Cooperstown, it's beautiful. It's like a Norman Rockwell painting. It's like picket fences and
fantastic.
Yeah. Apple pie, and you go to the Hall of Fame and celebrate the history of baseball, and you go into the area where all the plaques are, and you just get carried away, and you're kind of in a euphoria. So then we have to go play Molloy College in the double header, which, from what I remember, and maybe it's just my romantic way of remembering the park, but the park was sort of old school too. It kind of like old school scoreboard and kind of looked like a relic from 1930.
Throwback for sure, yeah.
And we roll in our vans, and we're going to play this school from Long Island, and everything's nice and peaceful and tranquil. And why don't you take it from there?
So I can't remember specific, like inning wise or anything, but so play is going on, and I'm looking to where I'm positioned on the field, and I see Nish keeps turning his head back behind him towards the fence, and there's a bunch of trees back there, whatever, just to set the stage as well, and he keeps looking back, and so I'm not thinking of anything. I don't know, maybe I didn't notice at the time there was a kid in the tree, but I mean, I'm like, maybe he hears something back there, or I don't know what he's thinking, right? Because I'm concentrating on the game and what I've got to do, right? So he, if I remember correctly, he whistles over. I'm being shot at. I'm like, what? I'm being shot at. I'm like, well, from where? From who? He's like, there's some kid in the tree. So I'm like, okay. So again, I wasn't thinking as well. But Daryl took care of that. So we come in, we got the outs, coming in the dugout, and Nish goes ahead and says, hey, there's this kid in right field. He's shooting BBs at me. And so the great Daryl, just Mr. Campbell, oh my God, just comes, just a straight face, Daryl, wouldn't laugh, just goes to Nish, if you're being shot at, call time. And just left it at that. And that was funny. So the other interesting thing being in the States, I'm not sure if you would, if Cooperstown was more of a, it's not like the Deep South or anything like that. But so we had the sheriff come, right? Because we've obviously I'm not sure if we reported to the other team or the score, whoever they got reported to, they called the sheriff because Nish is getting shot up by this guy in the tree, the BB gun, this kid. So probably shouldn't have, now probably wouldn't say it, but back then it might have been okay. So the sheriff shows up into our dugout. And I'm not sure if everybody heard or who all heard it. So he goes, "Who's the HNIC?" And we all know what that means from, we've all watched, well, I'm assuming the majority of us have watched Stand By Me. I won't repeat what it means, but so he's like, "Who's the HNIC?" And I'm like, "I'm right here." And he kind of looks at me and just looks away. And anyways, so, and then McRae, he talks to McRae and all this. But just, it was just such an unreal event where, your right fielder's getting shot at with BBs from a kid in a tree in right field. You're like, what is happening here? Like, anyway.
And we have to summon a KKK card-carrying member of the sheriff constabulary to fix it.
To fix it, yeah.
Unbelievable, right? If you think about this ruining our beautiful moment where we're going to be on a postcard of all of us playing on this field.
Yeah.
Get any other memories of playing the U.S. teams? I mean, I think everyone remembers St. Bonaventure, obviously, for the gong show that occurred there. But
that was a good one, though. That was good. But anyways,
it's the one time where I was really happy to see a coach get tossed because
and stand up for everybody. That was nice.
Yeah, because it was pretty clear. Now in retrospect, the more you think about it, they book a Canadian team in that they think they're going to stomp.
Yeah.
And I don't know there. I always thought maybe I was the only one who remembered it this way, but there were tons of people sitting on the hill there.
The hillside. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like some sort of homecoming thing that they were doing. And we were supposed to be the sacrificial lambs. And we came out and just blew the doors off Vance Kosher in the first inning. So it was 5-0, I think.
Yeah.
And the part that annoys me the part that annoys me to this day is we had Evil pitching first, and Chris, for anything, is a guy that throws strikes.
Yep.
He doesn't walk people. So when they started, the rally with the replacement umpire that was like ball 8, ball 12, that kind of stuff, they weren't balls. Like, it's as simple as that. They weren't. They were strikes. And they were just screwing with us. And, and then they Mike brought in Steve Vatour, who's another guy who doesn't walk guys, right? So it would be different if it was one of our pitchers who struggled with control, but we knew we were being jobbed.
Yeah. We
could feel it. We could see it. And I think Mike getting ejected saved all of us from doing something. I've commonly said I would have, if I had pitched in the game, I would have said to the catcher, call for a pitch out, and then move, and I'd have been the umpire. That's how that would have went.
Up. Yeah, you got crossed up.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
That was the unfortunate part. Like you said, I think, everybody, people on the side of the hillside, the coaches, everybody on their team, the umpires thought we were going to, just show up and just lay down, right? And we were like, okay, no, we can play ball too here. You know what I mean? Just because we're Canada doesn't mean anything. And like I said, I think they were taken aback there. But I mean, I'm not sure if they were embarrassed, but that's when, like I said, we're like, what's happening with these umpires? Like, what's happening? Like, what's going on? Like, just call the game, anyways. But it could have been a lot uglier than it was. But Mike took the frustrations out for everybody, and that was one of the best things I've seen on a baseball field, to be honest with you.
We'll get a T-shirt with it printed on it and give it to Coach McRae when we see him. So, Rick, we get to the end of the year there, and talk a little bit about the camaraderie you have with the other outfielders, because that outfield was special. But you've got Andy Tinish, Daryl Houston, and Scott Juziak in it, and you guys basically play all year long. We have, I think, a kid named Mike Gilroy that he's not a kid, he's an older guy that came up and played a couple games. But really, it's the four of you patrolling all year long. Tell me a little bit about what it's like when you're a center fielder working with guys that have range and big arms all the time. Is it make your job more difficult, or you had to be more aggressive in calling them off and that kind of stuff?
Oh, definitely with the speed. So you had to be more aggressive calling them off, right? If they were a little less fleet of foot, then you're doing more. But it was fantastic. Anything hit out there that had enough air, it was caught. It didn't matter where it was going, it was going to be caught. And you knew each player knew where they needed to be. They were backing you up, so you could lay out for a ball because there's going to be somebody behind you picking up that slack if you miss it for some unknown reason. But I mean, it was great. I mean, just as people, fantastic group of guys. Like just easy to talk to, easy to get along with. You know what I mean? And that makes it so much more enjoyable too, as well, right? And you have that success with the team and the teammates that you really like and enjoy. It makes it so much better.
Yeah, I could tell you as a pitcher, it wasn't really hard to look backwards and see you guys patrolling the outfield. It's like, it's pretty good. So we obviously finished a very successful year, and we won't dwell on the results of the national final.
Yep.
But tell me a little bit about what it's like playing in the cold, because this is going to be a recurring theme for Canadian University baseball, it's tough.
For me, I'm not a fan of the cold. So I don't know if you guys remember, I always had my tights on, my two pairs of socks, the long john. Like, I mean, I was never a fan of the cold. Now, I always felt that it affected me running. Like I couldn't get loose enough. I always found that the cold that, I just didn't feel right. Now I don't know if it really affected anything, but you always just felt that way, right? The cold's never fun, especially when I had as little hair as I've got less now, but I mean it's not as hair as I used to cut my hair back then. Trying to be out there with that in those temperatures, but I mean just everything. You get the ball off the wrong part of the bat, and then you're like your hand is staying for like 3-4 innings. Just a tough part of the game, but especially with the fall season. But I guess the Northern American schools have to deal with that at this time of year, right? So it's hit and miss, right? But that last game of Laval, man, that wasn't fun to play. It was rain and just the weather, but definitely not a fan of the cold, that's for sure.
So that brings us to, the second year where 15 of the 23, 24 players, 16, 17 of them are gone. There's only 7 or 8 of you that go on to year 2. Yes. On top of that, absolute turnover, the coaching staff has Coach McRae leave. How hard was it to, pick up and move on? And were you guys afraid that there was not going to be a team with that amount of turnover?
Well, talking to Coach Lounsbury there, we knew we were going to recruit the best we could. Now, like you said, you're going into a new year and you only got 6, 7, 8 returning players. You're like, I don't know, right? Because we had a fantastic first year. You're like, can we bring in the players that can at least get close to that or match that? Because we had quite a bit of success. So you want to keep that going. But knowing that with, Coach Lounsbury had to talk about, we're going to hopefully have that. We still did our winter workouts. Obviously, there was only a few of us. But, I mean, we did our winter workouts. And, we were lucky enough to have Mr. Scott Bullock come out for us. And he was still playing at the time. So, just seeing what a major league player can do and just getting some tips from him, you're like, this is great. But, I mean, you're always worried about the next year, especially with that much turnover. But at the time but once we got to training camp and you see the quality of players we had out there, you're like, okay, we should be good. You know what I mean? We'll be all right. But you just had a little bit of confidence with Coach Lounsbury there about, hey, we're going to do our best to get all the players in here we can and go from there.
Well, and I think one of the harder parts, though, is, effectively, you guys end up becoming the team leadership, right? Because you're our second year guys, because other than Chris Ebel, who was now in his third year, all of the team leaders that were there from the first year are gone.
Green, yeah.
If you think of Rob Green and you think of folks like myself or, older guys that were there and kind of, so did you feel that you were growing into being a leader with this new group? And did you like that? Not everyone likes that.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I felt now I'm probably like raw. Like I was vocal, but probably not. Like you wouldn't really notice me. But I remember the second year, I always come on the bench, and if someone's hey, we're let's step it up. We're going to need you, right? We're going to need you down there. Like if they weren't playing for some reason, they were down. Hey, you know what? We're going to need you at some point this season, so be ready, and be prepared. For me, I tried to show my like being a cat as just being okay. This is how you play the game. Being ready to go at all times. Didn't matter if it's practice. I'm practicing how I want to play the game. Just showing it with my play. Right. That was more as you know, I'm not a really talkative guy, but I'm competitive and I want to do the best I can and help my teammates out along the way if I can as well. Right. But so I just felt for me just showing them how to play the game or how I play the game, hard, competitive, and want to do the best for the team. I thought that was the best thing for me to do. Now we had Nish, we had Colin. Those guys would step up, and Nish was, he's a great speaker and good motivator. Dixon, you know what I mean? Guys we'll say more of that aspect of it with the guys. But for me, it was more, this is how you play it. Just watch me play. This is how you might want to try to play it, I guess.
Well, it's funny how personalities replicate, right? At the end of the day, you need a mixture of people to be able to motivate a group, and leaders by example, by and large, are some of the most effective ones, and people have a different way of getting there. But, I could do a pretty good imitation of the two of us communicating in my first year. I'd be like growling and you'd smile, and then I would just shut up and you would smile, and then I'd be like, all right, this is going to be fine. You kind of need that mix, and it sometimes depends on your position too. Like catchers tend to be more salty, kind of fiery, exuberant type of people, and pitchers in particular are this weird collection of personalities. It's a performance mentality, so especially starting pitchers are typically a little bit different when they're pitching as opposed to not. Chris Ebel's one of the very few people I ever saw that had the same personality pitching that he did off the field. Although he's a little more fun-loving, I think, as off the field, a pretty fun-loving guy. But the rest were just these kinds. So it's a unique mix. It's one of the few team sports where, in hockey you're exhausted and breathing heavy in between shifts, so you're not getting into a conversation about anything. But in baseball, there's lots of time. There's time where you're in the dugout. There's time before games. Time in the clubhouse after games, so you really get to know your teammates at an incredible level. So I think it takes kind of this mosaic of people to really blend as a team and really mix well. Speaking of that, let's talk a little bit about the rivalry with McMaster now. So we've got a 4-year period from 95 to 98 where it is hellacious. And how disappointing was it to get eliminated in 97 on a walk-off 3-run home run? Was that tough to take because you guys felt you were going back?
That's really tough. Like you figured you put all the pieces in place. You've played a great game, and then the ball's hit, and you're like, oh, okay, well, there goes this season, right? Again, not that the season was bad, had a fantastic season, but it just, when you're, looking like your goal is nationals, and that's now gone. It's definitely a tough pill to swallow, but got a bunch of resilient guys, and obviously the next year we show them. Same thing with the next year. You know, win the first, we win the first, they come back, then you're thinking the same thing. So now that stuff from the 90s is going in your mind. Okay, you know, we should have come in here and taken 2 games and got that. And then, you know, third game at our park, and then just, you know, the way things got started, you know, I was lucky enough to get a good pitch for myself. You know, we were down at the time, get a good pitch. I put one over the fence, which I rarely do, right? And, you know, we'll call it probably wind dated, but they don't ask how it went out or how.
No, they don't color code home runs, Rick.
This one, right? But borderline. But anyways, yeah, and then it just took off from there. So it's a thin line there where, you know, expectations, and then once they're gone, you're like, okay, you know, then you start thinking about, no, could I have done this more? Could I have, you know, was I really there enough for my team? You know, there's a whole bunch of things that go through your head when that final outs or the final hits gone, and, you know, you're on the losing end of it, right?
So it must be pretty sweet, though, to, you know, for you to, I know that the year after you guys get eliminated on the recent home run, Mac finishes in first place, and then you guys knock them out. They only lost one or 2 games all year, or something like that. So, you know, it's a case of reversal of fortune there, and then you guys go on to win a national championship. Yeah. And, you know, I think that speaks an awful lot about the leadership of that core group that stuck with it from the first year team, because a lot of you guys are the stars of the team that gets it done. Tell me a little bit about one of those teammates, Matt Fletcher, the catcher. And I've spoken a lot about Matt because as a pitcher, I had to have a good relationship with him. And given that he was in his first year when I got to throw to him, you know, I think I was probably one of those guys that just barked at him, but he took it pretty good, like a catcher should. And he was a different personality than Nate Capusa, the other catcher we had on the team at the time. But tell me how you saw Matt grow over his time at Brock, and you know, what he was like as a teammate.
Yeah, Fletch was definitely one of those guys where you hated playing against him, but you loved him on your team, right? So I've played against Fletch before I came to Brock, right? He was Dundas, so we were, you know, close enough. We played. So it's one of those guys you're like, I can't stand this guy, man. Just not because just because he was intense. He played the game right, and he was good, right? You're like, this guy, we don't want to face this guy. I don't want to see this guy again, right? But then he gets on your team, right? And you know, first year, you're right. He wasn't really, I don't say we'll call him a leader, but second year forward, he starts taking those reins, right? Starts being a little more vocal, especially with the pitching staff, like you were mentioning. So that's where I think the maturity we're talking about, you know, where he started. Like you said, he didn't really say too much. You know, you barked at him a couple of times there, but, you know, going forward those next couple of years, you know, he's being the more vocal one, saying, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this. You know, you're not finishing, you're not, you know what I mean? He's taking that role and saying, okay, I'm going to make this pitching staff better, just by, you know, helping out and seeing what I see. And just a great player, man. Could he block some pitches, man? Like, he took blocking to a different level, throwing runners out. Like, I remember we played at Inter-County or Brantford as well together, and nobody ran on him in Inter-County. Like, that's not, you know, house league, that's Inter-County, right? So you're getting your good players coming back from the States, and nobody ran on him then. So there's a progression from when he, you know, first year at Brock to all the way up to the last time I played with him at Brantford. But I mean, just incredible.
Yeah, he's a gritty guy too. You know, he grinds out at bats, and that part I loved, you know, about him. And character is hard to, you know, we all know when we play with people who have great character, you know, the types of character that are required to win. And you know, Matt's got that down in spades. I love that about him. He's a winner because he digs deep. You know, he doesn't just get satisfied with being good. You know, there's a big difference. There's a big difference between being very good and being great. And to me, it's those people are willing to go beyond where their talent stops, and develop whatever it is that it takes to go one gear extra. And you know, that's pretty cool. So Rick, you win a nationals, and what comes next for you, just in terms of how do you wrap up your Brock career? And
Yeah,
did you stick
so
with baseball for a little while? Because I
yeah,
think we,
I did stick with baseball. So obviously, my year five, so '99, I came out for a few games with the team. I did play some JUCO. I played against Erie CCC for a bit there. Then obviously school was done. So I took 2 years off. Didn't play any baseball. Then I got on with the at the time was St. Catharines Metros, now the Niagara Metros. So I played a couple of years with that team. At Nem2, Brad Nem2 was part of that team. So I got another person I played with Brock with, played with them for that team as well. So again, very Koba, very good ball. Again, some great teammates as well. Then again, I took some time off again after that. It was a couple more years, so I would have played. Well, sorry. So after first year Brock, first year at Brantford Erin County, played 3 years in Erin County. Took 2 years off, played the 2 years with the Metros. So that would have took me to say 2004. Then took a couple years off, and then my last couple years I played with the Niagara Falls senior men's team. Again, great group of guys. Just again, I'm just out there just to put a uniform on. I played, surprisingly enough, at that point my legs are done. You know what I mean? I had so many injuries, and my legs were just like, okay, you're not running fast like you used to. Well, I got in, I get in for half a game here, half a game there. I played second base. I played first base. You know what I mean? But yeah, so that was fun just at the end of my career there where the body's kind of saying, you know what, you've had your fun. It's time to just kind of see your way out and that stuff. So again, I love, if I could still play, I'd still be playing. I just can't run the bases anymore, unfortunately. But still like to go see it and have some fun. I do go now and then just watch the Niagara Falls guys play, but yeah.
Well, in about 6.5 months' time, we'll get you one of those Paul Blart carts that you can hit.
I need it. I need a Segway. Yeah, give me a Segway, or someone push me around in a wheelchair, whatever works. No problem. But yeah, I am working. It's not that I wasn't, like I said, those last years I wasn't, but I mean, my legs were just okay. I'd stretch, I do it, but they're done. But yeah, I'll work on my way getting in shape for, at least I can do some running. Hopefully, I'll hit the ball. That's all I'm worried about.
Yeah, we can't give Mac bragging rights, seeing is it's they can obviously point to having won the first national championship amongst us. We can point to eliminating them from going to nationals their very first year, and then we can point to winning back to back. So there's some things there that are up for grabs. Rick, tell me a little bit about life outside of baseball. Like you've obviously spoken about your wife being from Niagara Falls and the decision to have a family and those kinds of things. How does that happen coming out of school?
Is it on my side again? There we're back. There we go. Perfect. Yeah. So life after baseball. It's just been. I worked for before my present job. I got into the railroad industry just happenstance. Like I was a utility locator for a company in St. Catharines, and we used to come back, when we do our shop talk after work, and one of our employees mentioned that this company called CN, a railroad, was hiring. Again, I didn't know anything about the railroad, nothing about that industry at all. But I decided to put my resume, because there was some turmoil going on at my old job as far as trying to get a union in twice. I didn't get anyways. Paying guys right off the street more than what the seasoned guys were getting paid. Anyway, so that's how I heard about CN, and that's where I first got my teeth cut there on the railroad. So I started with CN in 2005 and been in the railroad industry ever since. 2017, I left CN and came over with Metrons, due in part to an old colleague that I worked with as an inspector at CN. He was over at Metrolinx and asked if I'd like to come over. And the grass has been greener on the other side. Obviously, it's a government job, so that's not too shabby. So as far as personal stuff, it's just outside enjoying the pool, the hot tub, watching the girls grow up. Like I said, they're not young anymore. They're not girl. They're 19 and 17, so they're not young anymore. But just watching them grow into great young adults, and we do some camping here and there.
Kind of like the way you play baseball.
We don't make it too complex. Just make it nice and easy and relaxed.
You always made it look very
enjoy
easy.
it as we
It's
can.
one thing I have this memory of you tracking balls in center and just making it look, it was smooth and it was easy and all those kinds of things. But also you're a great teammate, right? Like in retrospect, 30 years gives you an ability to look backwards and say, I played on 6-8 teams, I think, after Brock, which is a lot. But probably in my career now, I probably played close to 10 different types of teams, and some of them super talented, like, and other ones that were not as much. And to me, I just really have come to appreciate, how quickly we bonded as a team and how complementary everyone's personalities were. That, it wasn't just an attempt, despite the hard standards that Coach McRae put in, people still had the ability to be themselves. Coach McRae didn't ask me to become a very,
Right.
like he didn't ask me to think or be very nice when I was pitching. He just told me not to let the umpire hear it if they missed a call, or stare back like Dave Steve at one of your teammates or anything like
Right.
that. I never did that, but I also didn't go beating people with the ball like I had previously in my career. So, but you learn how to pick each other up, and there was a lot of things. I think the experience of the 95 Brock team really pushed everyone into the deep end, and you had to learn whether you could swim or not. And by and large, everyone learned to swim, but they not only learned to swim, they learned to swim beautifully. So I think that's pretty interesting. Talk to me a little bit about, we're doing this weekend thing to really benefit Todd and I, who was a great teammate, and also for Brad Reeson, who you would have crossed paths with a little bit. Tell me a little bit about your experience with Brad Reeson first, because I think you played with him on a different team, or you played against him when he was at the Ontario youth team. And he was a big mountain you guys had to knock down on your way to a national championship, was getting around that guy. But tell me a bit about what your thoughts on Brad Reeson were, and opponents in general, because you had a lot of McMaster players that played with and against you.
Yeah, Brad, great guy, good pitcher. Like I said, I fortunately, it was enough to get one up on him there in our last game there and hit that one out. But great guy, great character. I mean, it's the same. Having played with some of those guys later on, like I played with Dusky, I played with Gibby, Fortuna. Again, same thing. Those guys you hate playing against, but when they're on your team, you're like, man, I wish I was friends with this guy's like 10 years earlier, right? You know what I mean? Like they run through the wall for you, right? So there's always that aspect of it. Like I said, but I mean, just like he said, just a great character guy, great pitch, but he just played well. Like, you know what I mean? Just like I said, you always look at those guys on other teams as the enemy, right? You're like, I don't like this guy, I don't like this. But in reality, when you actually get to know them, they're great guys, and like I said, when they're their teammate, they'll do anything for you.
So Rick, we were, it's funny how opponents then become teammates. That you realize that they do the things that winning ball players do to win, and they're great people, and character is what makes them a great opponent. I think if they were suffering from some sort of deficiency that way, I think it makes its way inevitably onto the field, and those teams struggle. But clearly when you're playing great opponents like the McMaster Marauders, with their gang of pirates and our corporate Brock, very tight, a very well managed group there. It's a good contrast, and one that brings back the most memorable games of our entire baseball career. I'd be hard pressed to name a more memorable game series of games than those against McMaster. And it's a special feeling. Here's a good question. You've done a pretty good job of maintaining your relationships with some of the players from your Brock career. Given that you're going to be seeing a lot of people for the first time in almost 30 years, has there been any, teammates you've been that you haven't stayed in touch with that you're particularly looking forward to seeing because it's been way too long and you just like to find out how they turned out?
Yeah, I think it's again, it would be the majority of the guys from the first. Like I said, there's a couple of guys I've stayed in contact with, like your like Nish, Fletch. Not so much Fletch anymore, but I mean, there's a group of guys. When brings Jude, LePage. I still give a text here and there to Mr. McRae, their coach McRae. But there'll be again. I think a lot of the MAC guys. It'll be, like I said, we know our guys, but it's going to be great to meet everybody again, right? Like I said, it's been 30 years for most of us, right? So it'll be great to see, other than, seeing how they're doing on Facebook or quick texts here and there or whatever. It'd be nice to actually have some good conversations and long conversations with them, right? So that'll be the nice part of it. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to the weekend and, seeing how everybody's doing and, obviously catch up with some old laughs and, maybe some of the stupid things we did at school and all those fun things. But yeah, and again, mostly talk about the
just make sure that baseball, right? Tinish doesn't throw.
It is what it is, right? So now, I'll be excited to catch up with pretty well everybody.
Yeah, just as long as Tinish doesn't throw Juziak's hat and glove into the mud this time, I think that'll be. It's so ironic, right? Like I did Scott's podcast not so long ago, and of all the people I would have thought may not have stuck with the ties to St. Catharines, it would have been Scott because he was from Buffalo and different being an American coming over to Canada, but he still brings his kid to skating camps at Brock University and joked with his wife about getting involved or moving to St. Catharines because she's Canadian. And it's just very interesting seeing how people carry their Brock tattooing in some psychological way, with your daughter going there and Todd Nye's daughter's on the varsity swim team. Doug Lunny's kid plays for the Brock Badgers, which is tons of fun. Lots of reasons to celebrate a great time in our lives. So really looking forward to seeing you, my friend, and maybe you'll get to pitch an inning again, make a comeback as a pitcher.
Well, the smell